Later that night, as I sat by the fire aglow, a very translucent Ryan appeared and said, "Hey ho, let's go." So we traveled back to a schoolroom in Christmases past, to a harried-looking teacher who looked quite harassed. The kids have their English exams in a week, and yet all of them cannot correctly read, write, or speak. Ian looked at the board and inquired about the text. "Well, there's your problem. It was lyrics from mid-70s, yes. But they're the best," said the teacher, getting defensible. "They are," agreed Ian, "but let's find something more sensible." Fabulous! So I am here with the ghost of Progmas' past, an oogie spooky Ryan Robison. Hello, Ryan.
Ho, ho, ho?
I don't actually know what that ghost says.
I don't either.
But here we are. So we're ready to get spooked by edutainment. So before we leave Yes's early years, which I touched on with Brian earlier, I wanted to get just one more in because Time in a Word, Yes's 1970 album, was actually pretty fun and pretty good. And this is the second great song off this album, Sweet Dreams. So of note, compared certainly with the rest of Yes's career, this song has only 2 chords. It just goes F and it goes G.
I mean, shoot, people make fun of 3-chord rock, but they're just like, hold my beer.
Yeah, we're shaving it down.
Yeah, we're gonna take this down to its basics.
Right down to the studs. And I was going to say, I think the really interesting thing, and this is maybe testament to Yes, it feels much more complicated than a 2-chord song. Because, for instance, like Horse with No Name is a true 2-chord song. Just bah, 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 bah. And I love it. But this song feels more complicated than that. And it's testament to Yes.
For whatever reason, for them playing the jug like this, it works. They get more out of 2 chords than King Crimson does out of 74. And I love them both.
No, absolutely. And I actually think in this sense, the simplicity let John shine. Because I feel like in a weird way, I hear his voice more than I ever do later. And that's not true because he obviously shines a lot on some pretty big songs coming up in their career. But I actually think stripped down to the studs like it is, you can just hear John singing. And he's singing in complete sentences.
Well, I mean, I think we've visited his lyrics enough times that it doesn't necessarily bear repeating right now. But I think the thing that I want to figure out is, like, what were John's influences like around this time, right? Because this is 71. 70 even.
What broke?
We're not at the Crystals and Dreamcatchers phase, right? He's not meditating in the tent before every show. So what is John Anderson like in this day?
So what is interesting about this song in regards to that is it was co-written with David Foster. So that's an external collaborator. And that would explain the complete sentences. And actually, no, I mean, maybe there's an element there. We have talked about, and I don't know when we're going to release this episode, but we've talked about Yes doing the Tales from Topographic Oceans thing, but this is Yes's final endpoint. That's only 3 years from now, which is a pretty amazing.
That is astonishing.
It's astonishing, but I was going to say I think there's an element of, to be fair to Yes, they are a bunch of mad scientists, and I think John Anderson getting the keys to the car a little bit more every time. B, Steve Howe, I think contributed enough, probably conceptually, certainly musically, but also probably lyrically. And if he didn't give straight up phrases, I wonder if he was like, "Go for it, John." Like, take the big swing. Like,
you do you, buddy.
We need more catchers. And I think there's an element there of, I think Yes got more confident and John Anderson became even more the primary songwriter. And I think John unleashed. That's a whole different situation. And we will be getting to that with, of course, the purest John, Elias of Send Hello, one of these days in the future. And we're all excited for that.
Eagerly anticipate that.
I mean, I've got reams of emails saying, I don't know why you wasted breath on Dark Side of the Moon. We could have been listening
talking
about Elias of Sun Hello, but we promise, loving fans, we will get to that. But yes, all of this to say, I think that is the natural, that's who John was meant to be. And he's a little caterpillar right now, but he's about to become a beautiful butterfly. So I think one of the through lines you can actually hear between this 1970 Yes and like 1971, 72, 73 Yes is Bill and Chris absolutely chow down on this song. And I think you can hear them about to break into the stratosphere. Like they're just waiting to do it. And again, for just a 2-chord song, like you can hear the roiling energy.
The restraint is there, right? This is funky, it's crunchy, it grooves. And they still do this later with songs like Siberian Khatru, but they almost limit themselves to just good old-fashioned rock and roll.
And I think they're still within that stream right now, but you can hear they're adding just the little extra bits of licks and a little bit of extra flair that they're going to explore deeply in their next albums. But I think you can hear that energy there. And a coda to all of this, they bring this song back into their mid-70s live show with Steve Howe, and it tears down the house.
And does Rick get to play in that at all?
I've only ever seen Patrick Moraz of 1975, that tour. Okay. I've only ever seen him tear it up, but I'd be willing to bet Rick Wakeman goes nuts as well, because, this has neither Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman, or Patrick Moraz. This is their original guitarist, Peter Banks, and their original keyboardist, Tony Kaye. And then when you get to hear everyone take a solo on this insane song, I mean, it's such a good song. So anyways, that was a little taste of 1970 Yes. I just had to have you sound off on it as well.
It's the proto Yes. It's the Yes.
Which brings us to the molten core of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. So I will take you back in time to a few episodes ago, maybe just one episode, when we did Brain Salad Surgery. And we were like, well, this is the nougaty center of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. So 1973, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer do Brain Salad Surgery, and it's even more Emerson, Lakey, and Palmery than you could imagine. It's got even more crazy synths, crazy solos. It's got their infamous/famous 35-minute rock opera, Carnival 9. And the tour was so massive and so epic that they were like, we're done. We're going to go rest. So Greg Lake retired to a chalet in Switzerland. Basically, they did the classic rock star thing. They all went on tax exile. So they all come off, and they go off to their various corners. And Carl Palmer is working on basically cool drum solo arrangements and stuff. Keith Emerson is working on his piano concerto numero uno. Greg Lake is reconnected during Brain Salad Surgery with King Crimson's lyricist Peter Sinfeld, and they're working on a bunch of ballads. So Emerson, Lake, and Palmer come back together in 1976 and basically gumma up some sweet music, by which I mean they each take a side of an LP. So, as I say, they basically record those things I was talking about. Greg Lake does ballads, Keith Emerson does his piano concerto, and Carl Palmer does a bunch of classical/jazz covers with lots of drums.
How many bands are out there don't learn this lesson?
Never gumma?
Right. You do the exact opposite of Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen. You give each cook their own kitchen.
Yep. And I would say, I think... I don't know. I think the only time I think it's marginally successful was Yes is Fragile. Yeah. They each get one song, and I think 2 minutes of each cook is a good amount of cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I think we
a whole side.
That the Tapas album, and that's why it works. But no, this is a
full meal 4 times in a row.
Yeah, this is Thanksgiving dinner 4 times in the same day.
Going around, yeah. Stop in on Grandma's house. Have to hit both parents. Yeah, no, this is the whole shebang times 4. The album is a lot. I've listened to it only a handful of times because it's so much. But we flip over to side 4 of their double album, and we have Fanfare for the Common Man, which was actually a very, very relative for prog massive hit in 1977. And then we have the 13-minute epic Pirates. So, Pirates came from the fertile mind of Peter Sinfeld, who, by his own admission, was just watching a lot of Errol Flynn kind of adventure movies. It came from a scrapped soundtrack to a movie that Keith Emerson had been working on, but he had all these bits of swashbuckling music, which Peter Sinfeld was responding to. He, Greg, and Keith Emerson all work on the song, Pirates. So, Pirates in a Career of Density is ELP's densest song. First thoughts?
It's not one that people talk about. And given that backstory now, the real one, it makes so much more sense, because if you don't know that, my initial thoughts are like, all right, does Peter Sinfeld just sit down? Did you just watch, production of the Pirates of Penzance and decide, I'm going to go with some seafaring lyrics? And granted, that's a Gilbert and Sullivan opera, right? So it's not really to be compared with that. But like, nonetheless, it's like, as soon as Greg starts singing, you're like, is this the beginning of a musical? And okay, if Keith was writing a movie,
and I think so. The movie was an adaptation of a book about mercenaries, but Greg Lake said we can't do mercenaries. That's too dark. So Peter Sinfeld responded to this music saying, "Well, it's obviously about pirates."
Yeah.
The really genuinely beautiful part to this song, for me at least, is the metaphor he's running with, is that pirates are like a touring band. And when you start to hear that in the lyrics about we'll be with you tomorrow night and stuff, we will leave destruction in our wake, we will, basically take from the bounty of the sea and stuff. And genuinely that destructive, plundering attitude, Peter Sinfeld talks about. He was like, pirates weren't, I used to think of them as adventurous and swashbuckling and all romantic kind of, but they're actually pretty dark. And I think that's a perfect summation of the 1970s touring lifestyle, where it's like, it sounds like, oh, it's just a bunch of guys on a bus.
You're just having some fun. And
but it's like, actually, it's massively destructive.
Yeah.
And probably as disorienting, but also as enthralling as it would be to be on a pirate ship. So when you hear the lyrics with that lens, I think it adds, at first I was like, it adds a bit of, God damn it, Greg. But then I was like, actually, because the music is jaunty and hilarious, and it's straight out of like a 1950s pirate movie. But then when I thought about it, I was like, actually, that adds a lot of pathos for me. So
I didn't know that bit either, as far as it being, whether you want to call it a metaphor for the touring life or whatever, because I think the reason it is so impactful is just because, right, it's super grandiose, and that's not new for them.
Yeah.
But it's cheesy and saccharine, and I mean that positively.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. Yeah. Just because it's like you were saying, pirates are actually, they're ne'er-do-well, they're criminals. And that's actually could be a dark subject matter, but this is no more gritty and dark than a Disney cruise ship. Like, seriously, I'm seeing dinner theater on a cruise ship when I hear this, and I'm here for it.
And I think it does tap into in a more broad cultural sense. I think it taps into the Pirates of the Caribbean, as you talk about. That kind of like, it is both fun, kind of, it's a delightful aesthetic. I want to go on those adventures, and then
it's a Lego pirate ship.
Piracy was a mess.
Yeah,
and I think it's the same thing as the 70s rock thing, and I, again, it added different layers for me of this. I think sonically as well, the thing you're tapping into with the Disney is this is a orchestrated song. So Emerson, Lake and Palmer, to my mind, had not played with an orchestra previously, and I think I was just running through my head like, is that even true? But I was like, yeah, no, that is true. And the reason you think they do is because they play classical music all the time.
But the instrumentation
is just Keith Emerson.
It's just them.
And so this is the first time they play with a full orchestra, and they toured with the orchestra too until they ran out of money, which is very sad. Because I was like, I would have loved to have seen this era of Emerson, Lake and Palmer with a full 70-piece orchestra or whatever.
Oh my God.
They toured with an actual orchestra.
Yeah, and you have to pay an entire orchestra
all the time,
every
night.
I
think they did eventually run out of money for this, but they captured that on this song, and I both love it because it adds a new flavor to their soundscape. Like, this isn't just a piratey repeat of Carnival 9; it's actually a new song, which I love. But what's really interesting is they're very far in the background on this song.
Yeah, well, and to compare it to Carnival 9's funny too, because the lyrics here, they're not banal, but they're also, it's not this insane tale science fiction work. Like, it's pretty, I was going to say, it's pretty...
It's like a narrative story.
It's right over the plate on this one.
Yeah, this one's just a good old-fashioned story about pirates. And I think that's the other thing that makes this very good is I think the lyrics are so colorful and evocative, and Greg Lake meets his moment over a really beautiful song. And so I think for me, this is a song that for the first 8 minutes completely captures a mood. But then we come to the back 5 minutes, and I don't mind it. There's a certain charm to it. It's a lot of keyboard solos, teeny bit of Greg Lake coming back in, and then a final amazing verse, which is great. But we come to the central problem with Emerson, Lake and Palmer is I was like, oh, great, a composed song. Keith is going to have to sit down and be like, hey, orchestra, let's tell you what to do.
Well, because otherwise, right, he's going to be handing, because obviously you have to give them sheet music, and you're going to be embarrassed if it's
like, oh, this is madness. So I thought this was like, great, this will focus an obviously very fertile mind. But it didn't.
No.
And there was absolutely, by my listening, no editorializing. No. And this is something they've always had.
Well, that's what I mean. I was like, when have they ever had an editor? Has anyone ever reined this in?
Yeah. And you've asked this question previously to me, is what was going on there? Like, why was Emerson, Lake and Palmer singularly unable to be edited? Because I'd say of all the bands we've talked about, theirs might be the only songs from like, okay, yeah, you really could get out the scissors on this.
And no producer ever gets in there and does it. No record executive ever puts their foot down. It just doesn't happen.
And I think the thing that happened is, A, they started out as a supergroup. So all three of them had been successful in their way.
That's true. They already made their Matthew McConaughey rom-coms. Yeah. And it's like, now they're allowed to do whatever they want.
They're allowed to do what they want. I think they were a very successful stadium band. People showed up.
Oh, no doubt about it. Like, they filled the
stadiums for this. And I think the other thing is, so Greg Lake produced them. So that was another element of like, I think that was like, well, I'm not going to cut everything out here. And then I also do think they had already probably literally had fist fights in the control room on the way to making these songs. Because I think this was a bunch of big egos smashing into each other. So I think they think they've edited it. But no, there is not a, I think you would have needed a massive wrecking ball of a producer to rein them in. Like someone
I'm trying to even think of who that would be.
No, and I don't think you have that. And then I was like, I can imagine they'd storm around on whoever it was. And then also, I think it's like trying to get like a cat toy out of like a pen full of kittens or something. Whereas like, I think if you've got these massive egos just smashing into each other, imagine being the producer, sent down by like Atlantic Records or Manticore Records or whatever. Be like, okay, you guys go sort those guys out.
Yeah, you open the door, you take one look in and go, no.
Nah, I'm going to let Greg Lake produce it.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I like the records all sound great. You could cut 5 minutes, but what are you putting in there? And I don't know. So all of this to say, yes, Pirates does sometimes feel like it's 5 minutes too long, but I'm down for most of it. And kind of like the middle of The Doors, the end.
Yeah, it's just there.
It's there. You tune out, and then when the ending actually happens, you're like, oh my goodness. Thank God I was just around for this. Yeah. Anyways, it's great. And then the final bit there. So my favorite line in the song, and it's probably my favorite ELP line of all time, was anchored in an indigo moonlit bay. And I was like, what is it about this line of all the ELP lines that haunts me so? I think in the context of the madness you've been experiencing thus far, in a career that hovers between like 11 and 13, this takes it down to like a 4. And you're like, oh, whoa, this is actually like relaxing. It's beautiful. And then the wind fills the sails again, literally, and you start up.
Well, because anchored on an indigo moonlit bay, that sounds like the CD that's in the...
Like the budget rack?
No, that sounds like... Yeah. It's the budget rack CD while you're getting a massage at the spa.
Well,
it's
genuinely,
so wholly inoffensive.
Yeah, and I think it's after a bunch of swashbuckling, you have this moment of peace. The song meets that moment. like the song actually calms down, then it's just Greg Lake and you on an indigo moonlit bay. And then the wind fills your sails again and it's time for keyboard solos.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I think this is the, again with the editorializing, I don't think all of the bits in the song flow that well. They do feel like end another bit, and another bit, and another bit. And you can hear Keith Emerson being like, coming into the studio with another like bit of like legal pad being like, add these chords in. And then just, before they've even played that bit, he comes back and is like, okay, we're doing this now too. And that's what the song feels like. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a pretty incongruous song. And my favorite version of this, because I don't think Keith Emerson paid attention to the lyrics. One of the lines is, she's ours, my boys, and there's no one left to tell because you've just boarded a ship and killed everyone.
Yeah.
And then it's time for a hearty jig on the keyboards. And it reminds me of this one line from Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, the 1970-something rock opera. And Richard Burton, who's the narrator throughout the whole album, says, and then the Martians came and fucking blasted everyone. And then there's like a steel drum solo that goes doodly-doo-doo-doo-doo. And I'm always charmed when it's like, I feel like the lyricist and the composers weren't listening to each other. Oh, fantastic.
She's ours, my boys.
No one left to tell. So let us come then to last song on this Progmas Eve.
You did this to me on purpose.
Oh, I did. So, way back in the day, when Ryan and I did the intro to each of the seasons, Ryan mentioned the song Incense and Peppermints as like, oh, that stupid psychedelic song.
Oh, it's uncanny.
And I thought, for this Merry Merry Progmas, I would let you simmer in it. So legitimately, the reason I was thinking
this
about
is
it,
you giving me the Hank Hill to Bobby Hill treatment. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I caught you, and I'm going to make you smoke the whole carton.
Oh,
now.
you have to now. And you're going to learn your lesson about psychedelic music. No, so Incense and Peppermints, it's one of those songs, I feel like it's almost a folk song now. You just know it.
Well, it is one of the ones that would appear on those as seen on TV music compilations of
Absolutely.
the 60s.
The 60s. No, and I think it's, if you're like, oh, it's what song was the 60s, and it's this song. And that's very funny because it's a complete one-off. So, Strawberry Alarm Clock.
Who came up with that, by the way?
I believe that was their keyboardist who was like, Strawberry Fields Forever, and then they looked at an alarm clock. No joke. That is the story. And honestly, it's almost a metaphor for how all of this came about. So they were a band straight out of that groovy Summer of Love scene. And I think basically what happened, they're from California. And I think a producer was just looking around for like, who's the cool young kids? And unfortunately for them, what I think happened quite a bit during this like 1967 kind of gold rush in the music industry is they looked around, this happened to the Grateful Dead, like, we'll take you, we'll take you, we'll take you. Cut us a quote-unquote psychedelic record, because that's what the kids are doing now. And a handful of them, like the Grateful Dead, went on to have careers. And a handful of them, like Strawberry Alarm Clock, made a song. And then we'll get to the rest of their career, but they made a song. So this song was primarily written by their keyboardist, Mark Weitz. It is the psychedelic song, and it has all of the trappings of that good old-fashioned both psychedelic and then corporate rock, which we'll come to in a second. So they brought in a different drummer and different singer from the people in their actual band for the recording of this one track.
Not even the rest of the album.
No, the rest of the album's their band, Strawberry Alarm Clock. This was just a random one-off session where they're just like, we're going to do this.
What for?
The drummer, I don't know. The singer, very specifically, they couldn't get the right voice, so they brought in Greg Munford, a guy who was signed on to the same producer, and he was some other 17-year-old trying to make it in the scene. He affected a British accent, because I'd be willing to bet in the summer of Sgt. Pepper's, a British accent was the thing you needed to do, which is funny because I'd never thought about it, but it's like, oh yeah, he's doing a stupid British accent on this song. And it has all the hallmarks, as I say, of this kind of 1967 corporate gold rush for psychedelic music. So, of course, there was songwriting credit disputes, and the manager was producing a bunch of other bands So I think there was shady management deals going down. And the song's lyrics, which were written by John Carter, some other dedicated lyricist for the song, it's just littered with shagadelic stock phrases. Like,
well, the song actually doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean, it's just hippie Mad Libs.
Yeah.
And, the album cover, they bought Indian kurtas and they got sweet tie-dye and cool pillows to, for their album cover. And the song itself has all of the Beach Boy harmonies, that kind of Indian sounding Farfisa organ and the groovy Vox guitar. And yeah, that's it. It's a one-off thing. It sounds not much like the rest of the album.
Which I have never heard.
It is, and I wanted to come to all of you and say it's a great album. It's an undiscovered classic. It is not. It is pretty lame. And then I listened to their second album. By the way, they would go on to make 4 full-length albums. They actually had a swing at a career here. And no, that was not good either. So, unfortunately for them, I think, it was this song, which was a massive hit, and then that was kind of that. One final note before we talk about it is the co-writer of this song is the guitarist Ed King, who was in the band for a brief time, but would be perhaps better known as one of the guitarists in Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he was the guy who would go on to write the riff of Sweet Home Alabama. So there you go, some musical continuity. But to this song, so this is the psychedelic song. It's got the dumb 60s lyrics, the organs, the sha-na-nas, and I was actually thinking about it, and this always gets me when there's a song that's the cliche. I wonder when it transitioned to this is a hit song to this is now a cliche.
Well, I mean, the cliche wouldn't have happened till later, maybe give it another 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Or at any point when you try and make satire out of this, right? That's
yes.
I think when it happens.
My most formative cinema moment is the intro to Austin Powers, where he shows up to the Electric Pussycat Club. And this song is playing, and I think it's like, yeah, perfect. Like, this is the song you would play if you tried to evoke instantaneously the swinging 60s.
It is a stock photo of the 60s.
Stock photo. Yeah, I think that's right. Like, that's what it is. And it's just like, oh, do you want to instantly signify that we're all grooving out? You would play the song, and they do, and it works. And I think that's it. And interestingly, there is not an analogous scene for Pirates. And I was going to say, I think this song is too 1967. I think Sgt. Pepper's, it's obviously a psychedelic album, but there's something else going on there. And I think you could take any of those songs and you could, remake them with an acoustic guitar or whatever. I don't know. There's a depth and timelessness. Yeah. This is literally like, hey, by the way, the aesthetics of 67, that's all we got going on here. There's not deeper lyrics.
No.
There's not anything else going on. It's a great song in terms of how fun it is, but it's just like this little like Christmas ornament almost. Like, it's just nice.
I mean, I think that's how I feel, and maybe you tell me whether this is a apt comparison or not, but like, can we talk about the Sex Pistols for a little bit?
Take me there.
Just in the... It's a record label pulling the Hans Moleman and walking into the room saying, "Howabunga, dudes." Yeah. That's a terrible impression, but yeah. We've got just the thing you kids like.
Yeah.
For what it is, you enjoy it when you hear it, but it is a caricature of itself.
Yes. I think that might be it.
It's fun to hear God Save the Queen, even though you know it's not a good song.
Yes. And I think...
it's not, air quotes, real punk, right?
Yeah. And I think you're hitting on something deep there about the cliche thing, where you're right. I think there's the record label making this. As I say, they brought in 2 other people to just make the song.
God, that's such a...
And I think that's
a wicked burn on
what it is.
The 2 poor fellows that got ousted from this.
But it makes it the literal most perfect song you could make. I think the thing that it also does, though, is defang the project in general. So I said I went on to listen to the rest of this album, and God bless him wherever he may be, but the real singer of this band is not Greg Munford.
In what way?
It's just a guy kind of singing. He's pretty much in tune, but he has no flavor and no power to his voice whatsoever. The lyrics are not good.
Are they just... They're just boring?
Oh, let's
do we have any tasty excerpts?
Oh yeah, that's it. Incense and Peppermints. So you asked me to recount some of their finer lyrics from this album. So we have got Rainy Day, Mushroom Pillow, Colors Green, Brown, and Yellow, Wonder If They'll Turn Black Ever, Contemplating One Another, Poisoned Dreams, Distorted Dreams, Mushroom Dreams, There's No Place That Can Be Better, When You're in the Clouds Forever. So, not the worst lyrics of all time. Oof. They're just placeholder lyrics. And this is the next best song off of this album. Like, this is the next best one. We've got Birds Are Love, I believe. They have a few actually pretty good instrumentals on this album. I mean, but again, like, the album's just filler.
Yeah, those are placeholders. I mean, that is the equivalent of chaperone for psychedelia.
Yeah. And I think, so we come to what a cliche is and why things become a cliche. So I think with something like the Beatles, you genuinely care about the arc of Paul, John, George, and Ringo and how their musicianship and their writing and their voice in every capacity is expressed in the music.
And a lot of the lyrics, especially the ones that are more grounded in Sgt. Pepper's, they still speak to relatable experiences that we've all... Yeah, there's almost some. Well, I hate the term "slice of life" because it makes you think of.
It is though. No, I mean it is.
You think of like Randy Newman's lyrics, but
yeah,
they're relatable.
Yeah,
She's Leaving Home. I mean that's
a real song. No, and I think even Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is probably the closest off that album to
word
this.
salad of it.
Fine, I'll put it in the same bucket, but that was one song in 13.
Yeah, not the whole thing.
And I'd be willing to bet that the 1967 landscape is just littered with Incense and Peppermints that weren't quite pepperminty enough. So anyways.
Well, that's the thing is you almost wonder, right, if they're out there, if the label's out there doing their equivalent of Star Search, how much did they have to wade through before they even got to this?
Oh, yeah, no, but I bet they just send their A&R men out to the clubs.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
How much did those guys have to sit through? I want to imagine the young up-and-coming hotshot who's just got his career started at Columbia Records, and he's thinking, oh, man, I'm going to make a name for myself. Well, guess what your first assignment is? You're going to find us the next Strawberry Alarm Clock. Yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
No, and I bet everyone's like, we're called Pear Daydream.
No,
and start the Farfisa.
I don't think it's a joke. Yeah. I think this happened.
But yeah, so I mean, and to that point, I think it's interesting that this era in music obviously blasted a hole in everyone's consciousness. But then... that was it. And I think we look back on it as like this totally groovy time or whatever, but it was like 2 years, it came and it went. And then I think by the 70s it's like, okay, we're done with that now.
Oh, and the door got shut on this hard.
Yep. And I think I forget how hard the door did get shut on this.
It's like the transition from hair metal to grunge. Like the door closes immediately.
Yep. Which was a shame. That was a great loss.
There's no transition.
I mean, thankfully, nu metal has had eternal longevity. It was weird, again, with songs being cliches. It lives in your mind. I can recite this song. Every single second of it, I know.
Who cares?
What games you choose? And I know it all. And it's funny then going back to it. It's so cheap. Like, the song itself was recorded so quickly and so... it's not an expensive recording. It was a one and done, like, let's just get this in the bag. And I think there are overdubs and stuff on it, and there's obviously harmonies, but you can tell that they're just like, hey, we're running, we're hot, let's go, let's bash it out. We're not going to give them the expensive studio time. This doesn't sound rich like Rumors or something where it's like, ooh, yeah, like that's an expensive album. This is like, hey, we found a cool little club band, bash out, off we go. So, yeah, the song is greater than the song itself.
Well, yeah, can you say the song aged well or not? Is that even a valid question?
And that's the thing, I think, with a cliche song, I think it goes beyond those types of mortal questions for simple minds. No, I think genuinely it's a folk song. It's a song for the ages.
Because the reason I asked that, too, because you brought up Austin Powers, and I recently watched that movie being fairly... worried, like, oh man,
will this age?
Has this age well? And it does. It ages really well.
Yeah.
But I never got a sense. Obviously, I was much younger when it came out too, but I didn't realize like how self-aware the entire thing is and making fun of this scene and this era and time. Like,
absolutely,
it's literally perfect.
Yep.
That's exactly what the song does not do.
Yeah.
This is the Sherwin-Williams paint swatch of the swinging 60s. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's a thought about cliche. So with that, we are going to continue taking Brian Easer Scrooge around his horrible fate. So, adios. We'll see you later.
Dust off that gravestone.
Adios. Right after they had arrived back, Ian was whisked right away, and the ghost of Christmas's present had something to say. "Oh, looky here," said the spirit of Christmas's present. "Ed Cratchit couldn't even bring himself to brine the Christmas pheasant. Oh, Ed couldn't cook, he was lacking pizzazz. How could he work with this light Christmas jazz? I know what he needs," said the spectre so knowing. "Maybe some new age music to get his culinary mojo flowing." So I am here with the ghost of Progmas present, Anne. Hello, Anne.
Hello.
Hello, how are we doing? Merry Progmas to you.
Merry Progmas. Thank you for having me back on the show.
Of course, of course. So we are rummaging around in this little bag. Actually, that's not really the theme of what I'm going for this year. So I am dropping you off 2 songs today. So we'll start with the first song here. We have got A Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum. So Procol Harum was basically an R&B band that added Bach to a beautiful organ ballad, added some crazy lyrics, and boom, you've got progressive rock, apparently. But for me, this is just another song where the band basically did a first hit single in the kind of musical boom that was 1967. Basically completely reformed, had a bunch of copyright issues with this song, and the rest of their career is basically like another band. So this is essentially a one-off, but we rewind to 1966, where the Peppermints are quote-unquote the next big thing in blues rock. They have got fans in the Rolling Stones, fans, I believe, in the Beatles, and they are the next big thing in the kind of British blues rock scene. And you can tell why, because they are formed around Gary Brooker, the singer of this song, who, as you can hear, has a fantastic kind of Ray Charles-like voice. So this song, now made by their new formation of the band, Procol Harum, was written by lyricist Keith Reid, who would go on to be the lyricist for the band in general, about basically a girl who was sick at the party, but filled this song to the brim with kind of magical, mystical imagery. They would add the Hammond organ intro by Matthew Fisher, which included basically Bach's Air on a G string. Wait, no, that is right. Yeah.
Is that the correct name? I feel like I would have remembered if that was it.
I swear to God, that's the name.
How did I not notice that earlier?
It is.
You're right. Air on the G string is better. Wow, I can't believe I didn't notice that when I was reading it.
I was going to say, I guess maybe I've never said it out loud, to be fair.
That's what it is.
So anyways, it's that. It's a Bach song that obviously he modified to make this kind of groovy organ intro. Gary Brooker, as I said, their singer and piano player, would take this song to the bluesy stratosphere, and then they had 3 other people who would not be in the band after this single. So skip ahead to the end where they basically just dabble in some prog, but also try and regain some of their bluesy roots. It doesn't matter. The whole band is a different thing after this song. But unfortunately for them, nothing would match the success of this original single. So this song would go on to be a screaming success. I believe it holds the record for most played song on the BBC. It's a classic, and I guess you could call it the first prog song, though I don't really think about it like that. However, it's a beautiful, beautiful song. So, tell me about it. How did you first experience this song?
Believe it or not, I had never heard this song before, and was a little embarrassed by that fact when I was researching it and saw, honestly, just the sheer number of amazing artists that have covered it since its release. I was reading through the list of how many times people have covered this particular song, and I was like, how have I never heard this? I was kind of surprised, and as I said, a little maybe ashamed. I can see why it has the legacy that it has after just a few listens.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this song feels so much larger than some random one-off hit from 1967. So Ryan and I previously, in my previous stop, talked about Incense and Peppermints, which was a here and gone song from 1967. And it is, in many ways, the song of 1967, but it's honestly, it's kind of a similar story. You know, as I said, it was a basically random assortment of people who wouldn't really be in the band. It has all of the hallmarks of, you know, kind of the fleeting music industry, as I say, kind of that Yukon gold rush. But this song feels so much weightier. And I don't know why. So let's talk about the imagery real quick, because their lyricist, Keith Reid, filled this song with unbelievable lines. And I feel like every line feels like heavy and meaningful. So at the top you have Skipped the Light Fandango. Like it's a modification of Trip the Light Fantastic. And or I believe Shakespeare used this in a phrase once or whatever, but it is a quick, fun, carefree Spanish dance. So they're saying that the people at the party skipped the fun dancing and instead did cartwheels across the floor. Fine, don't know what that means. Then he talks about the Miller's Tale from Chaucer. So this is maybe the only tale I actually do remember from the Canterbury Tales, because it's a really visual one, but he didn't talk about it. He just talks about we listened as the miller told his tale. Talks about the Vestal Virgins, the Roman priestesses who appeased the home hearth goddess Vesta on behalf of the state of Rome. Wander through my playing cards, which I've always assumed was some sort of like divination tarot style, or maybe, you know, some sort of reference to Alice in Wonderland, you know, the Queen of Hearts, etc. But my big caveat is I don't think any of this actually matters. I don't think any of this is actually part of the song. I think it's just the Mad Libs are cooler than Incense and Peppermints.
You know, Keith Reid was quoted in a 2008 issue of Uncut magazine remarking on the lyrics. Would you like to hear what he said?
Take me there.
I was trying to capture a mood as much as tell a straightforward girl leaves boy story. With the ceiling flying away and room humming harder, I wanted to paint an image of a scene. I wasn't trying to be mysterious with those images. I was trying to be evocative. I suppose it seems like a decadent scene I'm describing, but I was too young to have experienced any decadence then.
Oh, that's interesting. So this is, I guess, yet another theme of 1967 of these, like, you know, 19-year-old kids sounding way older than they are.
I don't know if it was the drugs or the context or the world they grew up in, but they had a way of certainly writing poetry.
You know, maybe this is the lineage of the language of the bard. Like, I actually wonder, and this is, you know, actually a genuine thing that happens later in mainstream prog rock. If you've got myths and legends and that sort of stuff in your schooling system, in addition to literal Shakespeare and Charles Dickens and all that stuff, I actually wonder if you have a strong way with words, with imagery, etc. You know, like if you grow up, I don't want to say in creative writing class in school, because I'm not sure that's what it felt like in the 50s. But like, I do wonder if these young British kids are obviously growing up in an environment where they're hearing, I guess, richer literature.
I don't know. You know what? Because I just learned that Lush Life is like a classic jazz standard that is super hard to sing. You know, artists like Frank Sinatra famously refused to sing it because he felt like he couldn't do it justice. It was that hard of a song, and it was written by Billy Strayhorn when he was like 16, which just blows my mind. And I'm sure there's more, you know, examples of that, of just these young people. I don't know. They have these experiences, they have these lives.
I mean, I think the other element going on here is, so as I said, Procol Harum came from the Paramounts, which had been on tour with the Rolling Stones. And, you know, I don't think your average 20-year-old, whatever it was as worldly, but I was like, if you've been on a musical tour with a band that's been touring already for 3 years at this point, like they're the Rolling Stones, I think the Peppermints had also been playing, they'd been gigging as some other band who I don't quite remember. But the point is, I think, probably getting screwed by managers, left at bus stops, that type of stuff. They've been doing that for 4 years. I actually do think maybe you do bring some worldly experience to this.
I can't stop thinking about what you said at the beginning, which was that math equation was classical Bach plus bluesy rock equals prog rock somehow. Yeah. I think is what you said.
Yeah.
I think that's such a fun way of looking at it, because I don't know their other tunes that may have come as close to being as popular as this one. I wonder if they sampled Bach, right? Or if it's just like the nature of what caused this song to be made it part of a genre it was never trying to be part of. I don't know.
I mean, I think so. My suspicion as to what made this a hit in 1967 specifically. So on one hand, you do have just 1967. This is an obviously psychedelic song. Great. It's got cool lyrics, got the organs, it's fun, whatever. And his voice is amazing. Like, it's a good song. But also, in Britain specifically, there had been a style of music called easy listening. Mm. And I don't know if it was like world beating the most famous music of all time, but basically there's a bunch of songs which sound like stock classical. So I think the only thing we have left of it in the modern era, for a very select few of you at home, the intro music to Always Sunny in Philadelphia will be of this genre, where it's this really, really, really easy listening classical music. It's not Beethoven, flinging his baton around. And I think the Bach's Air on a G-string modification taps into that soundscape. And so I don't think this would have been painful and jarring like, say, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I think it's a naturally beautiful song. So
what makes this song a prog song to you? Is it the inclusion of the organ, or specifically? I
was going to say, for me, it's the lyrics. Like, I think you could have dropped any of these lyrics in any Genesis song. I think obviously the organ intro is really cool and all that and whatever, but it's basically a 3-minute psychedelic pop song with amazing psychedelic lyrics. That's about it. Mm. I just felt I had to finally include this on the podcast, and unfortunately for Procol Harum, we are not doing a full album. Though, for those at home, Salty Dog is a pretty decent album. So that's 1970. That's down the road. If you loved this song enough, go listen to that. They do continue. Obviously, his voice is great. The band is good. Keith Reid continues to be their lyricist. Just nothing ever captures this specific amazing mood.
Let's talk about these lyrics then. You mentioned the light fandango. We skipped the light fandango, turned some cartwheels across the floor. I was feeling kind of seasick.
So, for me, this is them skipping the light fandango, as in there is a dance, the light fandango, a fun, carefree dance, and this is them skipping that. And I was like, I can envision, I had no idea what this lyric actually meant when I first heard it, but like, you can envision the kind of cool kids at the party being like, oh, we're not going to do the fun, electric slide that everyone's doing out on the dance floor. It's too fun and light and whatever. We're going to go turn cartwheels across the floor because maybe we're not feeling so good. Maybe we don't want to go have fun, whatever it is.
That's funny because
that was my read on that.
I definitely heard skipped also as a verb that a human would engage in, right? Like you're skipping. And that's like a way that you could dance, right?
And that's very interesting because that was how I've always thought of it originally. Because I thought light fandango was just a weird phrase. So I assumed they skipped. That's what I had always heard the lyric as, is like they skipped, as in they verb skipped it.
Yeah, they danced it in a skipping way.
They danced it. So it could be either one, and that's part of the mystery of the song. Yeah, and then we've got the Miller's Tale. Always heard this. So obviously this is referencing Chaucer. and this is the miller telling his tale. I've always just heard it as all of this stuff was going on, some guy at the party was telling a tale. I don't think he's actually referencing the miller's tale, because he doesn't really talk about anything around, like he doesn't use adjectives that relate to it in any meaningful way.
You know, when I listen to it, it doesn't register that none of this rhymes. And now I'm looking at it as I would a poem, and I'm annoyed.
Oh, you like a nice rhyming scheme.
I like some rhymes.
But yes, so talk to me about what you think the lyrics are talking about then.
It's funny that Keith is quoted as saying that he's describing a scene of decadence, because for whatever reason, that's not what I got when I listened to this, and I was like imagining the scene in my head. I think I was imagining something significantly more mundane, like a corner pub.
I mean, so it's interesting you talk about that, because like whatever I have imagined, I've always imagined that being it. It's a house party. It's a low-key pub situation.
Yeah.
I've never seen it as like a gala or something. And that's why I say the Skip the Light Fandango is some kids either feeling too sick or too cool to partake in like a fun group dance. But again, not in the context of like a giant ballroom. And then the same with like the miller telling his tale. The miller tale itself is a body tale. And again, as you say, I like the pub imagery that you say, that it's hunched in the corner. 5 people are like enraptured by some local guy telling the tale.
Yeah. That is kind of what I imagine in my head as well, even though it references a crowd, right? The crowd called out for more. I don't know. But
again, and I've again never thought of like a big, like a royal court or something. I thought of like, again, a crowd of 20-year-olds or whatever.
Yeah.
Saying like, oh, that's hilarious. Like, do your impressions or whatever it is. Like, as in, for me, it's just such a house party scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the whiter shade of pale comes in, is knowing that was the origin of it, is that they were just at some house party and someone was feeling very sick, and that's it. It's a very mundane scene, as you say.
So now a sentence I never thought I'd say. So talk to me about these Vestal Virgins.
So the Vestal Virgins, so they are basically in the literal center of Rome. Senators and whatnot, basically men of high rank, would send their daughters to be priests to Vesta, and Vesta was the Roman god of the hearth. And the Romans gave offerings to all sorts. So they'd give offerings to their Sol Invictus, and they'd give offerings to, dead emperors who had been deified. And basically they were just always doing like little kind of civic religion offerings. This was for the state, a bunch of priests giving offerings to the god of the home and hearth, which you wouldn't have normally seen in public, because obviously you'd be doing it in the home and the hearth. Now, in the context of this song, I don't know why they're 16 and why, one of them is leaving for the coast. And, again, I've always just read it as that's a pretty cool sounding imagery. I don't know what he's getting at with that. But again, as you say, I've never thought of it as like some super amazing, grand mythological narrative. It's always just been, for me, there's a bunch of high status people and one of them just kind of leaves on a journey. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're aloof people, maybe they're, divine hippie people, whatever it is, and one of them turns away from that group.
Yeah, I didn't get that much from it either.
Yeah, I didn't get that, but I guess one final fact, because I thought the same thing with Incense and Peppermints, funnily enough. It's funny because the song obviously lives in my head so well. I forget how cheap it sounds when you actually listen to it. Like, it sounds like it was recorded in mono with them all, like, standing around one microphone. And it doesn't take away, like, how cool the song does sound. Like, I think it's got a good sound to it. But you can't make out really any of the instruments, which is kind of a cool sound. The organ is, like, sitting atop a blubbering mass of 1960s music beneath. But it's amazing how cheap it sounds when you actually listen to it and think about the recorded whateverness of this. So I wasn't prepared to tie those two together, but here we are. Before we head off to the next song, I just had one final fact, because what a fact this is. And, for Gary Brooker and Keith Reed and Matthew Fisher, what a little trait. This is the song that Paul and Linda McCartney met to.
That is a fun fact.
And I was like, imagine being that song where it's like, oh, you're the weird little summer song that, like, Paul and Linda McCartney met to. I mean, they heard it at some party or something, and Paul gave Linda a single to remember their evening together with, and that was this. And Paul is a big fan of the song. So we take a very Celtic turn for this next song. So, the one and only Enya started her musical career in her family Celtic folk band Clannad, and she would leave that band in the early 1980s and forge her way as a solo artist, releasing Enya, her self-titled debut, in 1984. However, working with her collaborators Nikki and Roma Ryan, her producer and her lyricist respectively, she would strike gold in 1987 with the one and only Orinoco Flow off of Watermark. We all know this song. It's probably the Incense and Peppermints of New Age music.
Sail away, sail away, sail away.
Yep.
That's all you need.
And it's like when you're like, oh, New Age music, you're like, yep, that's the song. Like it's a byword. It's a cliche in and of itself. It's a great song. But they needed to now follow up this absolutely smash hit. So in 1991, they come back with this album, Shepherd's Moon, and the lead single and hit off of this album would be Caribbean Sea. So we're going to talk about Enya now. I'm going to throw this out to you. What do you think is Enya's spooky wizardry? What's the thing that makes Enya Enya?
An ability to evoke calm and peacefulness universally.
Yeah.
Right? Even if she's singing nonsense, right? Which is what she does in multiple songs. She's just singing a gibberish language, and you don't even need to know what the words mean to know that you're feeling suddenly more serene.
Yes.
I think her melodies tend to be pretty haunting, and I think her visuals and the context that her music is played is also key.
That's real interesting. Yeah, I never thought about the visuals, because this song would famously have a music video that was based off of basically oil paintings. But in general, I feel like her visuals kind of contact mid-90s New Age in a very great way. And, I think lots of mood lighting, lots of flowing dresses.
I think of scarves placed over lamps for some reason.
Yes, no, and I think that is it. And then the funny thing is, she never played live. So that's the next element to Enya, is you're not actually thinking of her on stage ever. You're thinking of music videos, which is very interesting.
Well, she layered her own voice, a million times, right? That's kind of hard to perform live. Yeah. I think Imogen Heap has kind of sort of done that, and Katie Tunstall is another artist who will loop her own voice as part of her performance. But I'm not surprised to hear that Enya doesn't perform live if so much of her songs is her own voice, singing 12 parts. Yeah, I also don't think she'd get anything. She's a super private person. I don't get the sense that she needs to perform live, as a, spiritual artistic expression. I guess there's something else you're getting to there is the sound. So I guess we'll hit the soundscape real quick. And to do that, we need to rewind all the way back to New Age music. So New Age music was an outgrowth of the green movement of the 60s and 70s, and it combined spiritualism and naturalism, and through some very convoluted way, indigenous music, with the simple beats and very paddish synth of 80s and 90s, musical technology, basically. And for me, I actually think it's really an interesting spiritual concept similar to psychedelic music. And it was the 90s version of, how do we live differently? How do we reconnect with Gaia and, the flow of things and whatever? And I actually think there's a lot of similarities in there. But all of this to say, her producer, Nikki Ryan, and her worked together musically to come up with this soundscape. And you said it there, serene, where it's a lot of pads, a lot of strings, a lot of fake strings as well,
and a lot of layered vocals. And it's just her layering them. And I think that gives it the ethereal quality that you're tapping into, because it is unreal. It's uncanny valley. Like, everything's just a touch too perfect. There are acoustic instruments in this, but you couldn't pick out what, quote unquote, the band is, because there is no band. It's just Enya and fairies in the background, I guess. Like, I don't even know what it is. So you're right, this would be very hard to play on stage. And as a recorded thing, it thus makes it beyond music in a weird way.
I think we'd also be remiss not to mention the Celtic scale that's used.
Okay.
So we talk about scales in music theory class a lot. It's basically like a musical recipe, which is just like a collection of notes that sounds good together, like a collection of ingredients that taste good, right? And we're used to the Western scales, major and minor. Those are very familiar, predictable scales. You know when a song sounds happy, it's in a major scale, and when a song sounds sad, it's in a minor scale. The Celtic music, like traditional Irish and traditional Scottish songs, use different scales called modes. They have a mode called the Dorian mode, which sounds almost minor, but has like this bright twist that makes it sound kind of sad and hopeful. There's the Mixolydian mode, I think I said that correctly, which is almost like a major scale, but like not quite. And then, of course, there's the pentatonic scale, which is the scale that only has 5 notes instead of the usual 7, which makes it sound very eternal, I guess, because there's no... The song can just go on and on and on.
There's no anchoring.
Yeah. It's like using potatoes in your recipe to make a warm, comforting dish. You're only using the pentatonic scale. You're using potatoes and butter, right?
Yeah.
And so Irish music that draws on these Celtic modes and the pentatonic scale just sounds so flowy and ancient compared to the Western major and minor scales that we're used to hearing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, like, as you say, her way with melody, utilizing these scales, it is so unusual, and it really does kind of hook you in, and no one sounds like Enya. Like, I think the construction of her songs is so unique. You also mentioned using different languages. So she would use, obviously, Celtic, so actual Gaelic. She would use Latin, she'd use French, Spanish, Portuguese, and then later, her lyricist would make up her own Elvish-ish language. And so I think Enya is playing with languages as well. And it's funny, this song is a pretty straightforward, like, she uses full sentences and stuff. But the breakdown, she's just saying wind gods, but you wouldn't know what they are.
Yeah, the chorus, I don't think it's clear what words she's saying at all. Even if you knew the gods' names, I don't know if you would be able to hear what they are.
You can't actually pick them out.
Exactly.
And I think that's the point, and this is almost the relaxingness, and this isn't quite lo-fi beats to study and work to or whatever.
It's the prequel to lo-fi beats.
Yeah, like you are getting there where there's not an obvious lyric to grab onto. And, I think here of, like, I don't know, AC/DC's Back in Black, where it's like, as soon as I start hearing the song, I have to rock because I know the words. Like, and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to have to sing along, and it's absolutely not lo-fi beats to study to. I think this is like, yeah, she's technically singing something, but I've never wanted to sing along to Enya. I think the other thing that she's tapping into here, so this song specifically, obviously she does tap into Irish folk on other songs quite a bit. This song specifically, I can hear the Catholic Church. Like, this is a, without the actual organ, this is a swelling organ hymn. And the choir is there, but the choir is all just her. It's the kind of ethereal, I don't know, what is that? Mysteriousness of the Catholic Church and Catholic Church music or religious music in general, made even weirder and more otherworldly by the fact that there's no specific organ and it's all just her harmonizing with herself.
Sounds particularly heavenly.
And then all of this is to say her voice is heavenly. Like, she has an incredible voice. Like, it's such a clear, crisp sound. It has almost so little character that it's the most unique voice of all time. And, I say this with love, but, like, she has not a single rasp, not a single, like, nasal note.
It sounds very smooth. There's no detectable break as she's moving from between, chest and head voice. And at no point does any note that she sings sound difficult for her to sing.
Yeah, her voice is a pad.
It all sounds very easy and natural.
I almost don't feel like I hear consonants. Like, as if she's only singing vowels. It is so strangely smooth. Like whale song. But anyways, so that was Enya. I guess the one other thing I was thinking about here as I was actually doing a deep dive into Enya, finally, I think what's interesting about this song is I think it's just such a light, upbeat song. It is in waltz time, so 3/4, and it feels like a waltz. Because I was thinking about other songs in 3/4, and off the top of my head, I was like, Piano Man by Billy Joel, We Are the Champions by Queen, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Like, there's other songs in 3/4, Somebody to Love by Queen, but they don't feel like waltz songs. This feels like you could waltz to this song.
Yeah, the 3/4 makes it feel very round. Which is a silly way to describe it. And maybe it's because when I'm when I'm thinking of 3, I'm thinking in a circle. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Well, and that is the point of it. Like, that's why it's the dance beat.
Yeah.
And, like, this song just kind of could keep going off into the sunset. Like, she does choose to end it. But, like, the point is that you could do a 3/4 waltz until the band says, okay, now we're done with this dance. But and this is 3/4. And I guess that's what I was getting at, is there's other songs in 3/4, but this really does feel like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like, it feels like a waltz time. Mm-hmm. And it's a very, very prominent, it's on the 1, it's on the 2, it's on the 3. It just keeps flowing on and on and on, like a beautiful scarf placed over a lamp. Just flowing on and on into the distance.
While someone plays a soundscape of nature sounds.
Like a sentence without a consonant. And with that, we will continue our journey this Progmas Eve. Fare thee well, Anne.
Thank you. Good luck on your ventures.
Thank you.
I feel like that's a ghostly farewell.
That's a very ghostly farewell.